Tommy Curran, how we doing this week?
I'm great. How are you? Good to talk to you.
Very good. Very
great
good.
to be back talking football with you, Tom. What do you think of the Pats draw against the Chargers?
A good one, and I'm sure the Chargers look at the Patriots across the field and say, we don't mind playing them either. The Patriots are susceptible to rushing attacks, as we've seen later in the year. Toss out what happened against Miami with no A-chain and a couple of guys who were missing on their offensive line. And you realize that Omarion Hampton is going to be a player that the Chargers will try to feature frequently against the Patriots. They don't want to drop back, although the Patriots' pass rush is not one that's going to really expose the Chargers necessarily. But I think for the Patriots, it's a great matchup. There's a guy that I rely on. It's called unexpectedpoints.com. And he does all the analytics, takes everything into account in his power rankings. Excuse me. He has the Chargers as the 15th best team in the National Football League, the only team that makes the playoffs whose points over expected offensively and defensively combined to put them behind virtually every playoff team, not virtually.
What's your take on Justin Herbert? He seems to be a pretty polarizing quarterback when you talk to different people.
I think he's talented, but he seems to skate from blame frequently because of, it's Anthony Lynn. Oh, it's the offensive line. Oh, he's under siege. I've seen guys under siege not make the mind-numbing mistakes that he does. He makes a lot of bad plays. Drake May has been under siege, and he doesn't have the same tendency. And I think that's where McDaniels has been absolutely a godsend for May and Ashton Grant and whoever else deserves the credit for what May's development has been, is he just won't do stupid things to find out whether it works or not. And Justin Herbert does it, and Josh Allen does it, and virtually every one of the fun quarterbacks in the league does it. But May has already been curbed of that because he's working with a coaching staff that says you can't do that stuff. We're going to lose if you do that stuff. And now May has seen the byproduct of, so if we don't do that stuff, we might win 14 games with an average team. Yep. So my feeling on Justin Herbert is he does too many stupid things. But we watched him last year, throw flat-footed and just absolutely demolish the Patriots here.
Mm-hmm. No, it's true. 40-7 was the game last year that might have been the final nail in the coffin for Gerard Mayo. When you look at this weekend's game, Tom, and I agree, it's a good draw for the Patriots. Patriots have had a successful year at 14-3. Any way you break it down, 2 seed in the AFC. Lost on a tiebreaker for the 1 seed. They're at home. Meanwhile, Justin Herbert hasn't won a playoff game in 2 tries. Harbaugh lost his playoff debut with the Chargers a year ago. Who do you think is facing more pressure on Sunday?
Oh, I definitely think it would be the Chargers. For the Patriots, they've arrived at the station hours before they were supposed to pull in. And while I talked yesterday and will continue to for the week, because I think it's an interesting aspect of this, the playoff game and what happens in the playoffs counts 50% of your grade if it was a class. Because we can talk, I personally, because of the Patriots' margin of victory, because of which is 170 points, the second greatest margin of victory or point differential in the league this year, they took care of the ass schedule that they faced. They did all they could against it. Still, people are not going to get under the hood and look at the fact that the Patriots were 6-0 and the Rams were 4-2 against common opponents. They're just going to say, look, it's one of the historically worst schedules in football history. What do you want? So the Patriots have that around their neck coming into the playoffs. They can dispel that and dispatch that for the people who would need it to be dispelled by having a win and maybe 2 in the playoffs. That's all it takes. If you walk out and face plant, that game counts more than 50% of your grade, and people are going to say, yeah, you weren't that good. Maybe you'll be good next year, but now you have some scar tissue to deal with too. Good luck.
Tom, one of the big stories, or two of the big stories, I guess, back-to-back, going into the final game of the regular season was Steph Diggs and Christian Barmore and the off-field incidents with them. Didn't seem to be a distraction at all for them or the team on Sunday. Do you kind of think that just the rest of the way that's not going to be much of an issue and they'll deal with it in the offseason, or what's your interpretation of what's going on there?
Yeah, I think exactly the former of what you said. They'll just, react to the legal process as it plays out, unless those guys make it a distraction by coming to work and not being able to do their work. Then I don't think it rises to the level of being a distraction for anyone else. It's like, as I said, you root for your coworkers to have things go well for them, but you can still do your own job no matter how much chaos is going on for them, unless it's some tragedy that just distracts you every time you look at them. So I just don't think that we spend a lot of time on distractions. I think team-wide distractions are much more difficult to deal with, coach firings or coach speculation or something like that, than individual off-field things. And as I said Sunday, we talk about the football distractions because it's what's germane to the reason where that player is on our minds. But you can also presume innocence and support that player while not casting an individual, an alleged victim who clearly had something happen to them, as somebody who's completely made something up out of whole cloth. And I think that was an important sidelight to last week. Support for an employee can be inferred to mean denial, I don't know, or lack of support for the accuser. And these are people who are in the community, who live in the community, who, and these employees have been brought in to be part of the community. So that's the aspect I like to try and keep in mind myself when it comes to these conversations about players and off-field activity.
Do you think it's going to
make sense?
Do you think it's going to impact whether or not Steph Diggs is back on the team next year?
No, I can't imagine it would. I mean, the guy's in tears at his locker talking about how incredible it's been here. I can't get in his head. He seems like he can be a little bit of a mercurial guy, or at least he has been in his past. So maybe he feels differently in February, March, or April. But right now, I don't know why he'd want to uproot and go someplace else. It's doing pretty well here.
Yeah, no, I wasn't even asking on that side of it. I was actually more like, do the Patriots for sure want him back next year?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's certainly a good question, Rich, too, considering I don't know how this is going to play out. And again, when you read the police report, it's like, okay, well, something happened. So how much does that agitate the Patriots? Or do they just say, okay, Steph, that's not what happened. You said that's not what happened, and we're going with that. So I don't know.
Look, I obviously a lot to play out there, but I feel less secure about him being back based on that. We don't know how it's going to play out moving forward. But I agree with you. The police report, which we know top to bottom here, is something clearly happened, I would say there. When it comes to your Drake take of the week, which we haven't gotten to yet, Tom, presented by your New England Chevy dealers, Together Let's Drive. The loser label gets attached to these quarterbacks pretty quick when they drop a playoff game. It happened to Herbert after one. It happened to Lamar after like one or two early in his career. Are you worried at all about that sticking to Drake May, or is that way too early after just one playoff loss in an MVP caliber season?
It's not too early. I think the loser label would be slow to be affixed to him. I think the work in progress label would be affixed to him more readily. Like, for instance, remember when Kyler Murray played in a playoff game a couple of years ago? It was one of the worst playoff performances I've ever seen in my life. It was embarrassing. You can't play like that. If Drake May goes from a guy who completes 72% of his passes in the regular season for generally about 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, and runs for 40 yards in every game, and he walks out and he completes 43% of his passes, then you're like, wow, okay, well, what was different? It was a playoff game. He couldn't deal with it. If he goes out and completes 65% of his passes, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, the team's in the game the whole day, I don't think you're really going to be looking at him. What Trevor Lawrence did a couple of years ago in burping up that lead to the Chargers was, or excuse me, what Herbert did
to
in burping
Lawrence,
up that lead to invert. That's the kind of thing you remember. Some of the performances that Lamar Jackson has had, those are the things you remember. Resumes are built in the regular season and legacies are built in the postseason. There's a reason why we would still take Julian Edelman over Wes Welker, or Eli Manning is revered in a way that Dan Marino is not. And it's not because Eli Manning's a better quarterback. It's because of what he did in the postseason. So it's 50% of your grade. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about the performance of Drake May. And if he throws it over somebody's head in the first quarter and hits a linebacker in between the numbers, then you'll say, no, looks like the playoff game got to him a little bit here. Inevitably.
Well, the MVP award, Tom, is just a regular season award. So who would get your vote, Drake May or Matthew Stafford?
It would be May, and it's not, as people like to say, and it's not even that close. Because when you combine everything, May's completion percentage, his team's record, the players around him, the production through the air and on the ground, which trumps the passing yards, the fact that he's thrown downfield as much as he has and still has this ridiculous completion percentage, there's nothing that announces Matthew Stafford as the player who deserves it aside from touchdown passes. And as we've looked at it, the touchdown passes that he's thrown, a significant number of them have been for 1 or 2 yards to players who are really friggin' good. No one was banging down the door to get Mac Hollins or Steph Diggs or Keyshawn Boutte